All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA DFS video. Have definitely an interesting slate. We do have some news. Obviously, the Dallas Mavericks are going to be pretty banged up tonight. News-wise, that's probably a good starting point, but what are your kind of initial thoughts for the slate, Chuck?
Yeah, it's another chalk night where we have a decimated team. So Mavs, they're going to look awesome. Nuggets are without Jokic. It's a tough. I mean, I feel like these are tough slates, especially on such with 9 or 10 games, whatever it is. A lot of contrarian options. But I mean, today probably so far, I'm just going to eat the chalk and then mix in some low end guys as per usual.
Yeah, it's the last couple of slates seemingly have been almost straightforward. It's just like maybe one or two plays where you have to get different. D'Angelo Russell was kind of that yesterday. But like looking at today, I feel like it's not as straightforward of a slate today as maybe the last couple of slates, just because I'm not as comfortable with some of the chalk. Like we'll start with Dallas here. Like to me, Tim Hardaway Jr. at 6K is like a clear-cut great play, but we have seen Tim Hardaway Jr. get cold shooting the basketball and fail. I will say I do like Josh Green, Hardy, and Grant Williams at their price tags, but are all three of them going to hit value? Maybe not. What are your kind of initial thoughts for Dallas?
Well, I'm going to run 100% Jaden Hardy, and beyond that, it's pretty much the only thing I'm confident in. You mentioned Tim Hardaway, like he's chalk, but he's kind of a GPP play. I mean, I think he had like 3 fantasy points early in the last game, and he ended up with 50. So he just, got hot, and it's kind of what you need from Tim Hardaway. Like I talk about, it's tough to do things when you're not a star player, even when you are a star player, and there's not very many other good players on the court with you, especially against a good team like Dallas. And so it's like, I mean, what's the spread on this game? 13.5. We're in blowout territory.
Yes.
If Minnesota takes a lead early or just has a lead at halftime, whatever, like Jaden Hardy, I expect to play the whole game no matter what. Yeah. But the other guys, it's kind of up in the air. Like Grant Williams, Tim Hardaway, are they really going to run out there if they're down by 25 in the fourth quarter?
I know. That's why I'm looking at his minutes projection. I'm like 35. That seems way too high given the blowout risk, right? Like maybe 32, but I don't know. It feels too high. And the thing that I hate most about Dallas is like, other than Hardy, like who do they have that's like young that we could look at? You got Prosper, who maybe, but we only have him projected to get 11 minutes. Like to me, it's, I don't want to keep using this example, but like Jordan Nwora for Toronto, it's like there's certain players that when the situation presents itself, you just want to go in on a decent amount. Like Dallas just doesn't really have that player other than like really Jaden Hardy, a little bit Josh Green, but they're priced up enough to the point where it's not really worth taking a risk. I mean, do you see anyone there? Maybe Seth Curry or like, but like he's established. Is there anyone there that you like to take like a GPP risk on?
Nope. Like I said, like I'm viewing Tim Hardaway as kind of a GPP risk today. Yeah. Now I have a ton of him in my exposures. I am playing him a bunch, but I don't feel great about it. And then Grant Williams, I actually kind of was surprised his ownership was so low. I'm slightly over the field on him. And then Josh Green, I'll be shocked if he comes in at 9% on DraftKings. The 34% on FanDuel does make sense. But like, I don't know. Is Josh Green in that Jaden Hardy category? Is he going to play the fourth quarter blowout run? He's still a young player. They have incentive to develop him. But, I mean, Jason Kidd is one of the hardest coaches in the NBA to read. So,
yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, maybe that's why he's 9%. But, yeah, you're right. That, to me, should at least be triple what it is right now. That's egregiously low. But, yeah, let's jump on into Dallas as well. So, yeah, Jokic is going to be out for Dallas. I mean, other players out, doesn't really matter. Strother's out. So no two big differences there. But looking at it, DeAndre Jordan, not as high owned as I would have thought. He's only 20% on DraftKings, 27% on FanDuel. Is he someone that's looking like a core play to you? If not, who else are you looking at tonight?
Another guy that I was kind of surprised was coming in with lower ownership than I expected. And in my initial run, I'm getting just over that 20% over on DraftKings. So I'm not super loading up on him either. I think that the field is not sure if he's going to start or not, but I see no reason why he wouldn't. He started in every other spot where Jokic has been out. And so I will mention I really like Peyton Watson off the bench. Aaron Gordon's likely to see some center minutes. And then MPJ, I feel like he's a pretty good GPP play, even at 20% owned on this slate.
Yeah, is this a situation where we could probably just go with 5 players from Denver, like Jamal Murray, probably a little bit too cheap. Aaron Gordon, MPJ, maybe they don't coexist together, but they were both a little bit too cheap. And then, yeah, Jordan, if he's starting, feels pretty good. Heck, Reggie Jackson maybe gets a little bit more usage. And to your point, Peyton Watson's a very good value play, like especially given the matchup with OKC. They're actually 7-point dogs tonight, but maybe that doesn't hold up. But like, is there a spot where we could end up on like maybe maxing out on FanDuel and maybe going 5 on DraftKings?
I'm not quite there. Just scrolling through my lines, I have a bunch with 2, but I have very few lineups with 3, and I have 1 with 4, I guess. Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Peyton Watson, MPJ. And so, yeah, I mean, you could play 4 on DraftKings. If it was a shorter slate, be more okay with it, even 5 players. But with so many games tonight, and we do have enough value where we don't necessarily just have to hone in on the chalk value, I think it's okay to just get same with Dallas too, though. Like if I end up with 2 Dallas and 2 Denver players in a bunch of my lineups, that sounds good to me.
And then we got a decent amount of kind of injury situations. We can touch on this one kind of quicker. Detroit, they're going to be without Isaiah Stewart. Cade Cunningham is expected back, but only 33 minutes for him. Is this a spot where you maybe want to get to a little bit more Jalen Duren? Maybe Mike Muscala pops up as a value play. Maybe Thompson's a little bit too cheap. Is there anyone you're looking at here for Detroit with that Stewart news?
I think when I was looking through earlier, the only player I was really interested in was Jalen Duren. I mean, Cade is kind of always a GPP play. Yeah. Cleveland is getting Darius Garland back today. He's going to be on, I think I saw 24-minute limit, something like that. And Evan Mobley's still going to be on a minutes limit. But even without those guys, Cleveland is just such a better team. And so I would say Cade is a GPP play. If Detroit manages to keep it close, he's probably having a great game. I mean, Jalen Duren's going to have a tough time with Mobley and Jared Allen down there. But I think his price is still okay at pretty low ownership. And then Bogdanovich, yeah, he could just get hot from 3, but not much else I'm really looking at there.
I think that's fair. And then we did just kind of get news before the stream started that Paul George is going to be out, and we do have a confirmed starting lineup. So James Harden, Amir Kofi, Kawhi Leonard, and then Mason Plumlee. So my initial reaction is I might be looking at Russell Westbrook at 5.7, but also Mason Plumlee becomes a little bit more interesting. Kawhi, a little bit too cheap. And then James Harden, yeah, he feels like my favorite play on this slate. I don't think he's going to still be that low owned come lineup block. But yeah, what are your thoughts here for the Clippers?
So PG was supposed to be on a minutes limit anyway. So I wasn't, obviously he's still going to boost Harden and Kawhi Leonard with him being out.
Yeah,
but I've been playing a little bit of Russ lately. Ty Lue is letting him almost close in a couple games recently. And then he did have that 15-minute game too. So it's kind of just his minutes are very volatile. We can't really trust the minutes projection. It's just going to be an average and could be plus or minus 5 minutes. Amir Coffey, I mean, he's cheap, but his usage is so low and he just doesn't really produce that many fantasy points. Sure, he could have a really good game. If he's going to come in low owned, I'll have to see the ownership projection in a few minutes. Maybe I'll mix him in a little bit. And then I'll say Norman Powell at 4,600. He probably overall gets the biggest boost here, but it's just a matter of how much his ownership comes up, how interested I'll be in him.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. And the only worry here is 10.5 point spread. I mean, blowout run, this is another spot where like I feel like everyone still gets their minutes for the most part with the Clippers, right?
Yeah, Ty Lue doesn't tend to run these guys out for huge minutes anyway. They did lose some blowout run a couple games ago. James Harden and Kawhi hurt a little bit, but I mean, like Norman Powell, yeah, he's projected for a few more minutes tonight. Russell Westbrook, I think his minutes projection is actually probably pretty close to what it usually is. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know. I was looking at Mason Plumlee too, but it's like because even in a blowout, he's not hurting that much. Maybe he loses a few minutes of possible closing run if he closes anyway, but. I mean, it's the first game. I think we want to leave a lot of roster spots open. So I think we want to focus on the Norman Powell value and then maybe taking shots on Kawhi and James Harden as our lowish owned studs. I don't think they're going to be that low owned though.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And then real quickly here as well. So Chicago, we can just touch on their plays in passing. Same thing with Charlotte as well. But I did just want to kind of touch on a little bit more of OKC, kind of that matchup with Denver as well. So OKC, they're going to be without Williams and Isaiah Joe. Looking at ownership, SGA is soaking up a lot of ownership, and then everyone else is pretty much low owned. To me, again, it's a bigger slate, but like Carson Wallace with his 27% or 27 minutes projection, I kind of like that as a play. Is there anyone here that's standing out to you?
So my problem with Wallace is that He's also a poor fantasy producer, and
Yeah.
his minutes prediction is pretty good. Another guy who, if he's low owned, I'll take some shots. If he's the chalk, then I'm probably just going to X him out of my player pool. SGA, we don't have like pay up studs. I think the most expensive player on today's slate is DeMontis, right?
That's
10K.
been the issue lately.
Yeah.
We don't have studs to pay up for.
And so it's like, who are we paying up for? I love paying up for SGA. I mean, there's a bunch of other guys that we like paying up for too, but
Yeah.
SGA, I have as the highest projection on the slate, and his ownership is pretty reasonable. Jamal Murray still in for Denver, 7-point spread. We're not super expecting a blowout, so like getting to SGA, and then I was going to mention Chet. His price difference from Wembanyama is pretty big, and
Yeah.
obviously Wemby's been producing at a much higher fantasy rate. But I feel like Chet's kind of getting forgotten about, so I don't mind taking a couple GPP shots on him. And you mentioned Josh Giddey. I mean, I don't like the guy, but if he's under 6K, I don't mind taking a couple of shots on him.
That's what happens in the NBA with some players. They just gotta play him. It's personal stuff aside. But Chet Holmgren, I think that's an interesting point. Like going against DeAndre Jordan defense, like that's a better spot for him for sure. Let's actually get into a question from Jose here about DeAndre Jordan. So him or Nick Richards, and I just kind of want to start with saying I don't know. I don't like Richards as much with LaMelo Ball off the court. So I don't know if that's been confirmed just yet. I know he's doubtful, but if LaMelo Ball sits, I would say Jordan.
Yeah, I think LaMelo's out, and so it's going to hurt Nick. I mean, he had a blow up game a couple games ago, got more minutes than usual, and I think we touted him a couple games ago, not the blow up game. But I mean, his price is fine, but I'd probably just prefer to get to. I don't know. I feel like I'd rather just take the shot on DeAndre Jordan, save a little bit of salary.
And it's not like Jordan's extreme chalk or anything, so it's not like you're gaining or losing leverage. He's probably a little bit under owned, so and a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him have like a 50 fantasy point game that day when him and Reggie Jackson just took over the NBA.
It's fun.
I mean, yeah. I mean, complete outlier result, and we're not expecting 50 fantasy points for him today, but doesn't have to nearly do that to, for us to be happy about playing him.
I do like this comment from Dwayne. He's like, the value keeps switching. I'm like, yeah, that's going to happen right now with all this news that's been coming in. So hopefully in a couple minutes here, it steadies a little bit. But yeah, it's a big slate. That's why we like NBA DFS.
Yeah, just a lot of times the swap's not going to work out, but when it does, you're getting leverage on a guy who's lower owned than he should be. So, on that note about saving some roster spots for later, like we have a lot of the news already, and with them cutting off the last game, it's like the window for news is pretty tight. I mean, in LA, 4 p.m. is the first game, 5:30 is the last game on this slate. So, just find the balance. How good is this value now at the ownership versus some super low owned value later? And if something does open up later, they're going to be very low owned because a lot of the values kind of start a little bit earlier.
Kind of like yesterday, where like all the Warriors guys were a little bit lower owned than they would have been prior to lineup block. Like I got lucky with some Kuminga where I just ended up on him and he went off. I'm like, that was very lucky. But that's kind of what we have today as well. This is an interesting question from Power. Well, I'm going to phrase it as a question. So he's kind of saying Jamal Murray did not go off last time against them, against OKC. Is that something you care about?
So I've mentioned this before. I don't pay that much attention to individual matchups. It's just there's very few players in this league who are extremely ISO dependent, where you just give them the ball, get out of the way, and let them do something. But I have mentioned that Drew Holiday and Lou Dort are two defensive players that I do keep in mind. So I'm not adjusting Jamal Murray because of that. I'm still getting a bunch of him, but I don't know. It's like there's like a thing about Jamal Murray recently too, where he only plays well against bad teams, and it actually weirdly holds up. But OKC is one of the best teams in the NBA. Yeah. No Jokic today. Jamal Murray's just, I mean, they kind of need him to take over for it to even be a 7-point game. Yeah. And so, I don't know. I wouldn't pay that much attention to individual matchups. He's not going to be guarding Jamal Murray every single time down the court. Jamal Murray likely plays minutes without Lou Dort on the court. And so, I don't know. I'm not making any adjustments today, but that is like a prime defensive matchup for him.
Yeah. And then, so this is an interesting question. So Miles Bridges and Devin Booker, or Giannis and Tim Hardaway Jr., or we got another one, KD and Jamal Murray. This is Yahoo question. I need to see Hardaway's just real quickly on Yahoo. Is he too cheap? No. I would favor the last combo. What about you?
None of them immediately stand out to me as like, oh, okay, I want to play this one.
Yeah.
I don't know, flip a 3-way coin or something.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that much of a difference to where one of them is much worse or much better projected than the rest.
Yeah. Let's see here. So McGowan's starting for Charlotte. That's interesting.
Yeah, they tried so people thought Brandon Miller was going to be the point last game, and they actually ran Cody Martin mostly as the ball handler, and he had an awesome game. So I'm going to be pretty interested in Cody Martin today too. I have to take a look at McGowan and see how much interest I'll have. I imagine he's pretty cheap though, so I'll probably try to get there a little bit.
Let's actually just talk about Charlotte a little bit because Brandon Miller was kind of my conviction play on the last slate. Kind of worked out, 40 fantasy points, very low owned. That's more of why I liked him as a play. It was a good matchup. Today, he's actually higher projected owned than he was on that slate at 6.6 going against Chicago. I'm not exactly sure I like that as much, but he is projected to get 37 minutes. And let's say Miles Bridges does get ruled out. He's someone that's questionable. I don't know if that would hurt or help him. And so that's something that we got to worry about. But yeah, you mentioned Cody Martin. I don't mind PJ Washington as a GPP play, but like, do you have, like, other than, I guess, Cody Martin you mentioned, do you like Bridges? Do you like Washington? Like, is there anyone else that you like here?
I am over the field on Washington. Just as long as he's in the starting lineup, he's been playing heavy minutes the last couple of games. I mean, we saw him blow up for 43 real points 2 games ago, which complete outlier. Best game of his career. Good for him. I mean, he's a good GPP play under 6K. And then if Miles Bridges is ruled out, so Brandon Miller had a really rough start to his NBA career, but he's finally looking like an NBA player. And I talk about this where it's hard to do things when you don't have other NBA quality players on the court with you. And Chicago's not a great team. They're not bad either, though. But I feel like this is a game where even if Miles Bridges is ruled out, just let Brandon Miller run out and just figure it out. You know, if he makes mistakes, who cares? We're going to lose this game anyway. Just let him run and just try some stuff. So I do like getting slightly over the field on Brandon Miller, too.
And that's what they did last game. It was a blowout. He still had like 38 minutes in that game. So I do think that's appealing. But yeah, I did want to touch on them, but there wasn't like enough news to go crazy with it in terms of stuff we haven't already seen. So let's see here. So we got another question coming in here, and then we'll try to get into some positions. Well, we got a few more. The question is Kawhi and Harden, Kawhi and Harden. Are we playing them tonight?
Yeah, I don't see any reason not to. I mean, Harden has crazy ownership over on FanDuel, and so if you want to get away from him a little bit over there, that makes sense against Washington in a probable blowout. 10.5-point spread. It's not extreme or anything, but I mean, we know how these things usually go. 28% on DraftKings. It seems fine. And I keep mentioning they're in the first game, so you're going to lock up that roster spot immediately, but it seems fine. And the model favors Harden way more than Jamal Murray, so that's something I would. If you need to break the tie, it's not even close in the model. James Harden much higher.
It is actually crazy. So like everyone is above double digits for DK value. That's projected to get a decent amount of minutes for Clippers. So and then that you got Amber's question there. So let's see here. Yusuf Nurk versus Brooklyn. I don't like targeting Brooklyn. What are your thoughts there?
Nick Claxton is a rebounding machine. Nurkic, we kind of depend on him to get a double-double to hit value. I mean, he's just a GPP play for me.
Yeah. Let's see here. This is kind of an interesting question as well, and then we'll get into position by position here. So if you're playing in a GPP, it is too chalky to play 2 Denver players and 2 Mavericks players. I don't think this is a big enough slate where I don't think you really need to worry about that.
No, I think as long as you're not just playing the ultra chalk at the other positions from the other teams, then you're fine. Like I mentioned, most of my lineups, just scrolling through, I have 5 total players from Denver and Dallas, most of them. But like I'm mixing in low owned, like Sengun is one of my bigger stands today from a lower owned perspective. Mix him in and one other low owned guy, and you should be fine.
Yeah. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and jump on into the guards that we have on tonight's slate. So we already mentioned kind of a bunch of them. It's just going to be kind of recapping that a little bit here. So SGA is kind of the pay-up play on tonight's slate, it seems like, especially sorted by OF Index. Then we have a little bit of Donovan Mitchell. But when we're scrolling here, Chris Middleton's actually kind of popping up for DraftKings purposes. But what are your kind of starting points here? Actually, I do think that's a talking point. Damian Lillard going back home. Like, I'm surprised. Is he on the main slate?
No, they chopped it off on DraftKings anyway.
Oh man, never mind. I'm going to be playing the showdown slate and
Me
captain
too.
game. Let's just put it that way. So, but yeah, who are your starting points for the guards tonight?
Like I mentioned, Jaden Hardy, 100% of my lineups. And then after that, there's not really any chalk to eat. I mean, I guess the chalk plays are Harden, Tim Hardaway, Jamal Murray. I'm getting about the field with Jamal Murray. I'm over on Harden. And then Io DeSumo. He's been awesome lately. 4.6K price tag on DraftKings is awesome. Point guard and shooting guard eligibility. I'm pretty far over the field on him. And I don't know, Tim Hardaway. I have a bunch of him. I don't know what I'm going to end up doing. If I end up, like, I know I don't want to end up with more than 50%, but if I end up with like less after some other adjustments, and I'm okay with that too. Jalen Green completely blowing up a couple games recently. Don't mind taking GPP shots on him. And then Spencer Dinwiddie. Are you looking at him today? Because he's 5K and he's not pulling any ownership.
I like Brooklyn is kind of just they're a team I'm just not targeting right now, and that can definitely hurt me. But I'm so sick of trying to figure it out with them, especially on this big of a slate.
Yeah, and like Spencer Dinwiddie, another guy who's had some stuff been talked about, like that he's gave up on the team, that he doesn't want to be here and stuff. But I mean, if no one's going to play him, he's still out there. Ben Simmons isn't back tonight. Unfortunate, he got hurt again in the first game back. But I don't know, at 5K, like we have enough value today. We don't have to force in these low owned guys, but I think he's worth taking some shots on.
Yeah, I mean, it's not crazy to see him get 40 while getting 30 minutes. Like that's certainly within the realm of possibility. I mean, a great GPP play at low ownership for sure. Just it's risk reward for sure.
And just a couple other guys I like more than the field: Donovan Mitchell, Josh Giddey, Fred VanVleet, Mikal Bridges, and Kevin Werder. Weirdly low ownership after sometimes he's mega chalk at this price, and I haven't projected pretty well tonight, so I like looking at him too.
And to your point, like he's a pretty good value play on this slate as well, coming in low owned. Another pretty low owned value is KCP going against OKC. Yep. I don't mind that. I actually think he's a better FanDuel play, but the data doesn't. But another good kind of lower owned play.
It's so funny. I'm scrolling through my list and I'd intentionally skipped KCP just because, like you said, the data doesn't really say that he's a great play today. Yeah. But 4.1K, I don't mind mixing him in.
No, it's we've had worse plays that we've had to be on this year for sure. Maybe not on this big of a slate, but yeah, he's solid, I think. Yeah. Any love for Terrence Mann just because he is forward eligible on FanDuel as well. So there's a lot of position flexibility there. He is also 4.1. Maybe gets a little bit more minutes with Kawhi off the court, not getting any ownership.
Terrence Mann,
sorry, Paul George off the court.
So he's a guy I noticed will randomly get these usage spikes a couple times in the last few games, but I don't, even without Paul George, I don't know if the ceiling is there enough compared to some of the other value we have. Now, with that said, he is low owned, and like, I mean, if he puts up the 26 he put up 2 games ago, we're probably okay with that. But I don't know if he loses minutes in blowout run against Washington, and he's still playing next to James Harden and Kawhi, so I don't think I love it. But if I end up with like 1 or 2 shares of him, I'll probably just keep it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's just easier to get to Hardy instead. So,
yeah.
Let's go ahead and jump on into the forwards here. So looking at right now, we do have a lot of decent value here. That's not extreme chalk. It is a big slate, so no one's going to be too chalky. But I want to start it with OF index ranking because, again, we just have a lack of players to pay up for. Now, Victor Wembanyama did get a price bump finally on DraftKings. It seemed like that was taking forever. He's above 9K. Now, he's still kind of cheap. He's an okay play, but we really have 3 pay-ups. We mentioned Kawhi as a decent play at his price tag. Do you like KD or Wemby?
I still like Wemby. And so one thing interesting last night, Wemby was mega owned. I think it was 8,900. It was a better matchup than he has today against the Magic. But he didn't have a bad game. I think he put up like 49 or 51 or something. But the problem is that Sengun came in 3% owned compared to Wemby's 50. Yeah. And Sengun outscored him by like 10 or 12 or something like that. And so I don't know, just something to keep in mind. There's a lot of pivots today, and Victor Wembanyama at 11% owned, 9,200, even the 10-3 on FanDuel at 5%. I think it's fine. Orlando's a really good defensive team. I think that against centers especially, they're pretty good, but it's Victor Wembanyama. I don't know if it's too early to call him matchup proof, but model likes him a lot. 9,200, 11%, sign me up.
While we're on kind of the Spurs, I do think it's noteworthy that Zach Collins and Keldon Johnson, they're currently questionable. We don't have Zach Collins for minutes. I don't believe. He might just be center only, but is there any pivot there if like one of them or both of them get ruled out? Does that maybe mean Wemby gets a little bit more run? Are we looking at Sohan? Are we looking at Doug McDermott? Are we looking at anyone else?
I have zero exposure to anyone else from the Spurs, but
Fair.
I will mention Jeremy Sokan. I don't know, kind of has this boomer bust thing going on kind of recently. Trey Jones seems fine. Keldon Johnson off the bench. I want to be into him for under 6K, but it's really hard. And then Devin Vassell, I think is a little bit overpriced. As for the rest of the Spurs, I think there's enough value elsewhere. That's why I'm not really getting to any of them except Wemby.
Okay, I think that's fair. So let's see here. Other forwards that we can be on. Obviously, we mentioned Tim Hardaway Jr. as like a GPP play, maybe a little bit too high owned. Grant Williams does feel safe. Aaron Gordon. I guess who would you say is more safe for Denver, Aaron Gordon or MPJ?
I feel like it's Aaron Gordon. MPJ probably has a higher ceiling, but Aaron Gordon has a ceiling too. And just thinking about the role he's going to have to play tonight, those center minutes are going to be very valuable for Aaron Gordon, and his price is just. I think Aaron Gordon is more mispriced than MPJ. If they knew Jokic was going to be out, how could Aaron Gordon not be $1,000 more? Where MPJ, he could probably be $1,000 more too. But especially with Aaron Gordon projecting for lower ownership than MPJ on DraftKings, I think it's a much stronger play. I'm gonna have a bunch of MPJ too, but Aaron Gordon is my priority from Denver.
I would agree there. One interesting value play, and it's someone that I typically will end up on in a pinch. Kenrich Williams for OKC, 3.2 there, popping up as a decent value play. I don't know if we need to get there. Projected to get around 19 minutes, 3.2, almost min price on DraftKings.
It's funny. He's a guy I land on sometimes too. So I will say it's good to see that the model does think he's a good value play, showing up near the top, even though he's basically min priced. But coming in at 2% owned, are they going to run him at center to match up with Aaron Gordon during those center minutes I was just talking about? Maybe. But either way, like we have a lot of good value. We don't have tons of like super duper cheap value like Kenrich Williams. So don't mind taking some shots on him, especially we're going to be playing a bunch of Denver players. You don't necessarily have to run it back with like an SGA or a Chet. You can just find like a cheaper run back like Kenrich Williams.
No, honestly, I really don't mind. And I think it's like when there's a low price play like that, I always like to try to mention it just because you never know what someone's lineup process is going to be. Maybe they have to end up on someone, below 3.5. And there's been plenty of nights where I've had to do that. So just definitely noteworthy. Just talking about some other plays that we mentioned already. PJ Washington, decent GPP play. Peyton Watson, good GPP value play. Miles Bridges, if he plays, maybe decent play there. We did kind of get a question about Karl-Anthony Towns or a statement. One of the two there. Do you like Karl-Anthony Towns tonight against Dallas?
I'm getting a few percent of him, but I don't know. It's kind of weird with him and Anthony Edwards on the court. I mean, yeah, Cat had that huge game. Anthony Edwards was in. And I do think this is the appropriate price for him, but I don't know. It must be just the other guys at other positions that I'm getting. Like, I'd rather just pay a little bit more and get up to Sengun or save the salary and get down to I don't know, DeAndre Jordan or something like that.
Yeah. Any other forwards that you want to mention?
Let me just take a look here. No, we mentioned a lot of them. I think the two value guys that I really like getting to are Peyton Watson and Cody Martin. Like, I'm not getting a ton of them, but they are showing up a pretty decent amount. Grant Williams, GPP-ish. Josh Green, GPP-ish. DeMar DeRozan's been very consistent, and his ownership is weirdly low every single day. Like, I have kind of a hesitation to play him a lot too, but he's been awesome. And without Zach LaVine on the court, he's been really good. And I saw someone asking about Jimmy Butler. His price is coming down. Tyler Herro's price is coming down for that matter too. But Miami's been so bad, and I don't know what's going on. Terry Rozier shouldn't be messing them up that bad. Right. But Miami's been awful. They're under-owned, and so I don't mind that as a kind of a GPP shot, especially against Sacramento, one of the best matchups that we could look to target players against.
Well, Jaime Jaquez is projected back tonight, so I think they're going to figure it out. That's been the difference. So
you need the rookie to hold the glue together.
Yes. Jimmy Butler 2.0, as I like to call him. So, I mean, there's trade rumors today going around that they're just thinking about shopping Jimmy Butler. I mean, that's why he's Jimmy Butler 2.0. So there we go.
Send him to LA.
Every time. They're getting Murray, it seems like, though. I mean, that could be fun. We'll see. I mean, you never know. It's just, man. All right. So Who would get less minutes in a blowout for Dallas?
I think everyone except Jaden Hardy and maybe Josh Green. Like, if it's a
Yeah.
blowout, they're not going to run out Grant Williams. They're not going to run out Tim Hardaway. I feel like Tim Hardaway has the shortest leash out of all these guys. Like, Jason Kidd kind of has to depend on him today, but he's definitely not playing in a blowout. Like, Dwight Powell, probably not. Maybe Maxi Kleber plays in blowout, but then it's just the other guys at the bottom of the list right now.
Like, I think Prosper, I wish if he was starting, I would definitely, well, I think everyone would then, but like, he is someone that I do kind of want to play, but like not at 11 per projected minutes. So,
yeah, and it's like this minutes projection to me, it like most of the time he's going to play around 11 minutes, right? But like, let's say he gets the whole fourth quarter, and we don't predict blowouts. I mean, Vegas isn't really predicting a blowout, but we've seen this work out a couple times where guys like Prosper and then was it AJ Lawson or someone else on this team came in and got a whole fourth quarter of run and they just smashed at min price.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, like if you're making a lineup and you love it and you only have 3K left over, maybe look at one of those two and hope for a blowout. But like, that's the only way. It's very thin there, but let's see here. Bridges or Butler?
If that's Mikal Bridges, I'm pretty sure my answer is going to be Mikal Bridges, but I don't know. Recency bias is pretty strong, and Jimmy Butler just does not care about the regular season. So,
So are we playing Porter and Gordon together tonight? For me, that'll just kind of, I think I will be prioritizing Gordon a little bit more. And if I end up on Porter, I'm more than happy to. I don't think it's something I'm going to not actively try to do. What about you?
Yeah, I'm not setting a rule against it. They're both cheap enough, and they don't necessarily cut into each other's fantasy production. I mean, if MPJ goes off, that doesn't necessarily mean Aaron Gordon's not going to go off. If Aaron Gordon gets a couple more assists, a few more rebounds playing center, I think that they're both fine.
So we did just get some news that those Spurs players are out. So let me refresh the data and we can touch on that a little bit more. One player I want your thoughts on, and we can actually pivot on into centers as well with this, is actually Barlow. He's been someone that has gotten a little bit of run occasionally in this situation, but he's not even projected for minutes. So like maybe not. But like, is there a backup center that we can look at other than Wemby?
No, I would still be looking at Barlow. I remember there was like a week where we were super on him. He helped us, finish with some pretty good lineups. But he's playing minutes in the last two games. He missed a few games there. I'm assuming that was when Zach Collins was in, or maybe Barlow was hurt or something. I don't keep tabs on Barlow, but the minutes seem like enough. He's pretty cheap. No one's going to play him. 3,600. I will say he's kind of a pivot off DeAndre Jordan, so it's pretty awkward to just not play DeAndre Jordan and play Barlow. But if that 400 lets you finish the lineup, the $400 salary difference from DeAndre, then seems fine. And he's a pretty good fantasy producer. And again, if it's, I mean, I don't think we're projecting a blowout, but if it ends up being a blowout, he gets a bunch of fourth quarter runs. So here's the thing. Wembanyama is still playing in blowouts. Like Pop doesn't care. Develop your young player. So Barlow might not benefit from blowout run as much as some other players, but I do think he can still get there in regular time.
And I don't want to say that the Magic are a big team, but they're not a small team either. Like maybe they have to, give him his normal minutes or a little bit more minutes. Like my biggest, I guess, concern with him, Barlow, is that he doesn't have power forward eligibility. That would have been nice. You're eating up a center spot or utility spot.
Yeah, if he was a power forward, I would definitely be getting to a little bit more. And then there's centers we like today. Not like a ton considering how big of a slate it is, but the center spot is still super valuable. So
let's see here. We got AO and then Caruso. Which one do you like a little bit better for Chicago?
So recently it's been Caruso, but today it's Dosunmu, and I'm pretty sure their price difference is pretty drastic today. Yeah. Dosunmu's at 4,600 DraftKings, Caruso's 58, and so I haven't projected exactly the same, and so I'm just playing Dosunmu a ton. I will say, like, Caruso's kind of a pivot off him, even though he's so much more expensive. Yeah. So
I haven't seen what he's done. I just need to look it up real quick. Julian Phillips, I know he's been like a cheap minutes guy. Has he done anything? I'm looking it up right now.
Not enough that we're interested in, but like playing 20 minutes and 23 minutes the last two games, and then 17 a few ago. I mean, it's something to think about, but I do think we have enough other super cheap guys. He's not, and here's the thing: we don't have super studs to pay up for today, so these min price guys just aren't as valuable. Like a bunch of the mid-range guys going off would be huge. Like on that Grizzlies slate a few days ago, I think it was on Monday when Scottie Pippen Jr., he put up an awesome score, like 28 fantasy points at 3,600 or whatever he was. And he was not in the winning lineup. It just, there was so much mid-range that went off that he, even though he went off at his cheap salary.
Was that Jalen Green going off?
Yeah, that was a Jalen Green day. And so, yeah, it might not be necessary. And so there's a lot of good mid-range plays who can all go off today.
Yeah, I didn't have any Jalen Green. I had a great lineup as well, a couple of great lineups, and that's just 40. If he just goes for 40, like not 60. But Sengun was a good play that game or that day as well. And then we did just get a question about Sengun as a play. So let's pivot on into centers here. So you kind of mentioned you liked him as a good play. Doesn't seem priced up enough on DraftKings. So yeah, let's get your thoughts on him as a play.
Just coming in at super low ownership. I mean, New Orleans isn't, a weak center team, but I've been starting Jonas, and Larry Nance has been starting the second half, and Sengun's usage has been off the charts. FVVs has been down slightly. I can't pull the numbers up. I've been trying to load it the whole show, but it won't load for me. But I mean, last game I liked him because he was a direct pivot off of Wemby. Now all my Sengun lineups still had Wemby in it, so that didn't quite work out as the pivot. But I just, looking at the potential that he has to put up tonight, he seems like one of the better center plays on the slate, and the model thinks so too.
So let's look at some of the other big center plays that we have. Obviously, we kind of mentioned Wemby a little bit. We already mentioned Towns a little bit, Chet a little bit, Miles Bridges a little bit. So let's see the pay-ups that we have. So let me just do DK main again. So Sabonis is really the only pay-up, but the data likes Wemby a little bit better and Sengun almost as much. So probably don't need to go there. Chet is really ranking out well. You got Jared Allen, Nick Claxton as decent plays. Rudy Gobert, centers against Dallas. Kind of don't mind that, but Vucevic is a play that I like. He's kind of chalky. But yeah, what are your starting points here for the center's position?
I will point out right now, I just refreshed, and it still has Victor Wembanyama projected for crazy minutes. So his OF index and his value will come down. That's why you should sign up for the site. $7 a week gets you access to the model after the stream ends. But yeah, really like Wemby, really like Sengun. Going to play a bunch of DeAndre Jordan. PJ Washington is center eligible. I guess I'm getting him in a few center spots. And Peyton Watson is center eligible. I feel like I'd rather try to have a true center in there, but I don't hate it. I do like Cat. I like Larry Nance. Vooch looks awesome still. And Nick Richards, I guess, are the guys that I'm getting to more than 10%.
What would you play DeAndre Jordan and Peyton Watson in a lineup together? Since you can play, okay.
Yeah, no problem with it. They're both cheap enough, and I mean, we're not going to have them projected for that many minutes anyway. And I do imagine they share the court for a few minutes, and so I think they're both fine.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, I think we kind of touched on the centers enough there. Let's go ahead and get into a little bit of a first look build here. Are you fine just eating some of the chalk on the top end, or kind of where do you want to start? Like Jaden Hardy seems like the starting point, right?
Yeah, Jaden Hardy is the lock for me, and after that, I'm wide open. I don't have many strong preferences. Probably want to get Ayo Dosunmu in there, and then if we can fit Sengun, I'd like to get Sengun, and I guess Aaron Gordon is pretty close to a lock for me too. So
I agree with no, that's fine. I like it. So Sengun, we get in there, and Hardy, Gordon, Sengun. Who was the other one?
Dosunmu. Yeah,
I'm fine with that. I will say I do like James Harden a decent amount tonight. I kind of want to get there. He is chalk, but I'm kind of fine eating that chalk as it sits right now. Like he feels, I don't want to say safe with a game that has a blow up, but like I like his ceiling tonight.
Yeah, no, I like James Harden tonight too.
Okay. Obviously, we would switch this and put him earlier just for anyone that's following along here. Small forward wise, so we have to get a small forward in there. We could go maybe Tim Hardaway Jr., Grant Williams. Unfortunately, power forward only eligible. We could play him. We got Michael Porter Jr.
So it's like the things that are safe to say on stream because they're chalk. If they fail, you can't really be mad at us. Right, everyone else thought they were good plays too. MPJ and Tim Hardaway are the two obvious ones. Don't think that we have to get to one of them. Yeah. Cody Martin, I like if we want to save some salary. And then I mentioned DeMar, who's just perpetually underowned. But today it makes a little more sense because we have such good other plays that are more in the mid-range.
I will say I do like a lower-owned Josh Green and a lower-owned Brandon Miller as well, though. So, like, I'm actually fine with any of those plays we kind of just mentioned. Cody Martin, really Josh Green, I guess, if we need to get some value. So I guess I'll leave the ball in your court there. But which one do you want to roll with there?
Yeah, let's get one or two or all of those guys. Brandon Miller seems good, and who's the other guy you mentioned?
Josh Green, I think.
And Josh Green, yeah, Josh Green seems fine too. Slightly underowned. I question the ceiling, but still fine.
Yeah, I mean, we look at this game against Orlando. Like, I'm kind of encouraged by it, actually. 1 for 6. Got into foul trouble, still played 33 minutes, and now you take Luka off the court. Like, I'm fine with that. And then we have 7.4 left over. Chet, kind of chalk. We could go maybe Jalen Duren, maybe Jimmy Butler, Nick Claxton.
I like Mikal Bridges, actually, playing against his old team, too.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
If you guys want to add like 5% for the revenge narrative, I think that's fine, especially for Mikal.
I'm telling you, the revenge narrative is only when they're going back to their old stadium. That's when it hits.
You're right. Well, so KD has that revenge narrative against Brooklyn today. This dude didn't play for the Nets, man. He was there for 5 seconds. It's not enough for a revenge tour.
Yeah, that doesn't count. That really doesn't count. Like Lillard, it's not revenge tonight, but it's like the homecoming game. He's either going to go off or he's going to be ice cold. It's one of the two.
Right.
But yeah, I think that kind of does it. Let's see if we got any more updates to the data, any more news coming in. I don't think there's anything crazy just yet. A couple of confirmed lineups. So we got the Clippers confirmed. We already had that, though. I think Cleveland confirmed. Nothing too crazy there. Charlotte confirmed. We already touched on that. Yeah, I think we're pretty good. Any closing thoughts for you?
No, just Lucas's question: Wemby or Sengun for GPP? It's one of the toughest decisions to make today. Last game it was a little bit. Last time it was even harder because they were basically the same price. Today there's a little bit of a price difference, but I mean, I think they're both really good plays. They're both going to come in, I think, a little bit lower owned than they should. So if you're playing one of them, I think you're probably in good shape.
I'm going to answer DeAndre Jordan actually, and just pay up elsewhere. I don't know. It's fine. We got a lot of center plays that are good plays, it seems like today. Vooch has another one. So,
well, that's one thing. Wemby has the power forward eligibility too, which is kind of huge on today's slate.
You're right. That does help. But yeah, just a quick plug for the Discord here. Again, typically going live 30 minutes before lineup lock. I need to start saying that because yesterday I said it was going live and it was a later start time. So it's always going 30 minutes before lineup lock. So that should be starting. I just need to double check. It is the normal time today, right? Yes. So it's starting probably now or in a second. So link for that is in the description below. All right. Thanks everyone for watching, and good luck tonight.
Good luck, fellas.